Oh! Oh! Hang on! Hang on! This... Come here.
What now?
Oh!
What? You going to have some of these?
Tell me about these.
These, if you eat too many of them,
Yeah?
you can get a headache.
A headache?
Yeah, because they're very potent. Oh, well, to me, but a lot of other, there's a lot of vitamin C in this. It's very rich in all that. This Dave.
I had the privilege of spending some time with a very special person here on my second day in Alice, and I almost felt like that was a privilege beyond my time here, that I hadn't done enough time here. But I met Aunty Dorris here, and we had an amazing conversation for quite a while, and we covered all sorts of things. But I think the thing that resonated the most was just how integrated with your stories and the landscape around us you are, and you express to the next generation.
Yeah, well, I think it just comes with the land that you are responsible for, and it talks to us, and we get our guidance from what our ancestors have always known, and we are the ones that are left to pass on the messages so that people, the young especially, can take it on to the next 2 or 3 generations, and country will always be with us. Once we die, we go back into country. We're still directing that traffic. We just don't pass away and that's it.
The way you use the word responsibility, I mean, that's right through every cell in your body, and the cells of all those that have passed.
Yeah.
That's a connection. I mean, it's easy to talk connection, but you're living it.
Yeah, and we're grounded from the day we're born. We're grounded to the country, and it gets passed on through generations, and you can only get that from the patrilineal line, which I am a part of, my father being part of this landscape. My brother had it, my late brother. He's now passed on. So it just continues on through,
And
as long as we've got our sights here, we can still relate to our country and thousands of years of knowledge that's tied up in it. And it's very important that none of it gets damaged. And as long as I've got breath in my body, I will fight to protect what we are responsible for. It is so priceless, you cannot put a price on it. Because you don't own it, it owns you. That is the difference.
That's enormous. Like, as a difference, like there's poles, and there's poles, and it's just poles apart. And as part of your responsibility, you're trying to bring those poles together.
Yeah. If I can, with the help of ancestor beings and family that have gone before me, I will try till the day I die to see if we can't join up those poles you talk about, Yeah.
Thank you for welcoming me to your country, and I feel it. Yeah. I feel incredibly welcome, and it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Costa. I enjoyed your company, and because you listened, you was hearing what was being said. You didn't just shake your head and say, yeah, right, How can that happen? But it is part of our life, and it's something that you have from the day you're born till the day you die. And you can't step out of that pathway that you must follow throughout your life.
The thing that resonates the most with me is how you talk about, and recently, as I mentioned, I've been in Catherine, and the elders up there were telling me how, this tree and that ridge, like they're family members. it just puts a whole new perspective on the significance of every last piece of this picture.
Yeah. If that tree's cut down, the branch or that, it bleeds. And we bleed for it because that's part of our arm, our leg, you know. So that's how we connect. Yeah.
That resonated so powerfully with me, and then to hear that you're just complimenting and repeating those connections, and the more time I spend, the more I realise just how significant, each rock, each tree, each shrub is on the canvas of.
That's right. And we join those dots up, with the trees and the rocks and the river. It's all one big landscape. Yeah, and when one is damaged, we're damaged. We feel that pain. And having a town built on our traditional ground has added more and more pressure to us, because people, and it doesn't matter whether they're home buyers or they're developers, they all want something for themselves at our expense, not in monetary terms, I'm saying, because we have to give something that we are a part of. Even though we don't own it, it owns us. It's very hard, if you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, totally. And I mean that's the line. It owns us, and that's.
It's been here a lot longer than any of us. And, the trees that are damaged or burnt in the pod, they're hundreds of years old, You can't just take them out because they might look unsightly, or because then there's some insects home. The hollows are nests for the birds.
Yeah.
So everything has a place. Who are we to come along and take it away? It's so, the message is there and it's so simple. Just live with it, not against it. And you'll live healthier lives, So, yeah, that's how I look at it anyway. I mean, that's how you're taught from when you're little, to respect. It's what it's all about, respect. Don't sell it, it's not yours to sell. Unfortunately, in the monetary world that we live, well, you go cast your mind back before a town was built here, when there was nothing, only bush foods. Families survived for hundreds of years before supermarkets, before...
And trucks and transport and planes and...
All they had was foot falcon, just use the foot.
The foot falcon.
Yeah.
I like that one. The old foot falcon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, what a different concept of time to then facilitate that understanding and that observation when you're moving slowly.
That's right.
And you see the changes. You see the change in that relative. And if they're not looking well, then you think,
go
okay.
and lie in the creek bed, or go out bush and get that energy back into you.
Yeah.
And go to the doctors and get a script like I do, when you can. But like I said, this town was built on where we would have had that. That need would have been there for us,
Yeah.
But now, someone's backyard. You have to knock on the door and ask permission now.
And to the same detail of observing that tree as a relative.
Yeah.
And if it's showing a signal, well then you understand it's drier or it's wetter or this is happening or this is about to change.
Yeah. Or insects are in there, the borers or whatever.
Telling you.
Yeah.
Literally.
Sending out the message.
Yep.
The signal's there, we just have to tap into that and read it, And we're halfway there.
What is it about the pace of life today?
For me, I just tend to want to go slow. Try and catch up with, it's impossible to try and catch up with But I noticed, as I get older now, I noticed that we have been putting out the same messages for years and years. I've lost a lot of my family members. And now I sit back now and I see things like this working towards that togetherness. It's not me or my family that are no longer here, all the years that they've spoken about this, it's now country's turn. They're taking over and putting the messages in people, opening up their ears and eyes. And I can see the change.
And you're making it.
With the help of country, and people are coming on board, non-Aboriginal people. And we're all working together. Like, if you had a look at that, that's doing that work on the Coolabah swamps. Yeah, you want to have a look?
Yeah.
Craig and Jody might want to explain then.
This is like the kidneys of Alice Springs. It's responsible for filtering water, and it's in a pretty bad way.
That's a beautiful. That's the way of putting it. It's the kidneys. The lowlands are the kidneys, and when you think about it like that, it's not something that you fill and put housing over. It's something you respect.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a bit of interest building and a bit of momentum about how do we come together as a community, working with at Murugatui, making sure we're doing it all properly, working with hydrologists, looking at these old plans, pulling out the best of it and beginning to restore this place. Jude's one of the residents along this area here, so she's doing a lot of work with the local residents in the space too to get them on board of how we work together to just improve the health of this space. Ecologically, culturally, and also socially, it's a beautiful place. But at the moment it's treated like a wasteland. We want people to see it as for the beautiful value that it is.
We are now calling it Ankara. Ankara, given it its rightful title, and those Coolabah trees represent those caterpillars all dancing and corroborating there. Happy to meet up with the local caterpillars, joining up with the ones that travel from the west.
And just the very step of naming it or giving it its proper name.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel as part of a process?
I know up there they're smiling. The ones that the ones that have gone before me, they'll be saying, "Yeah, good on you." With the help of Jude and Jody and the rest of young Ben from Oliver.
Once you hear the name and you hear the story, you don't look at these as trees anymore. You look at them as ancestral caterpillars who are greeting other caterpillars who are different but the same, coming from another place, looking a bit different. And this is the place that they did it in. And this is pretty well in the centre of our town. It is the centre of our town.
Yeah.
And so once you know that story, you don't drive through it thinking I'm driving through a wasteland. You drive through it thinking, look at all those sentient beings out there. They're talking.
You can't help but think that even when we're standing here, and we're saying the words, but when people are standing here and saying the words, it's just fueling the connection with what you've spoken about and fueling that story and bringing it to life to a new generation, which is what you're responsible for, isn't
That's right, yeah. We have a job to do that we don't, it's 24/7 for the rest of our life. It only ends when we stop breathing. We have to continue on. And it's a bonus having people like all the ones that are helping to get this to where we can say, well, look, this is for everyone to enjoy. It's not off limits for non-Aboriginal people.
And people who have a vision such as Doris, they give us permission to care for a place that we're obviously visitors to. We don't belong here. We've just arrived here in the landscape of things, and hopefully we'll be here potentially for generations. But Doris gives us permission to care for that country in more than a physical way, to emotionally care for it and be attached to it, as her brother did before her. Yeah.
How do you feel about that responsibility?
I'm not 24/7 like Doris. So it's there, but I don't bear the stress, I think, of that demand as Doris does. I can still go in and out as I have the time and the ability. I can look at it, I can enjoy it, I can read it on so many levels now because I know the stories that go with it, or some of the story that goes with it. But it's a responsibility I enjoy because I can choose it, because ultimately I guess you are still from somewhere else, whereas Doris can't choose that responsibility. Yeah. I think it's a different kind of...
That's right. Yeah, I can't say I don't want to do it today, you know. You have to, you know. You don't sign on and sign off.
Yeah.
It means I can put in energy that you might find hard to because you're exhausted.
It's most appreciated, don't worry, you know, to get... I couldn't manage all this, you know what I mean? I've only got that gab, you know, to talk.
But then, I mean, the thing is you're then interpreting it and sharing it with the new audience that needs to learn about it and that doesn't necessarily have direct contact with you.
Yeah.
So this is expressing it to
Yeah, as my late
outsiders.
As my late brother used, it's the sharing and the caring. If we care, then we share. That's how he used to put it.
And when I was nearly 16 years ago, I was walking with Doris's brother through here, and we were doing work then. And
16 years ago?
Yeah.
What?
And I had one of my children with me, and he said, this thing of being given permission to care, he said, and you little caterpillars, got little white fat, you know, babies, you little caterpillars, you're born here, it's your job now. And he made it absolutely clear. Yeah. It was absolutely clear that,
Wow.
you know, it was more than could rest. I mean, urbanisation wasn't Doris or her family's choice.
No, that's right.
So this is one brother here.
Here's one of your caterpillars.
Did you go down to the swamp today and
She's
look
not
after
bad.
it? So one of the big needs is to restore the water flow, which is a very long-term objective because it'll involve drainage and restoring water flow out of these drains that pass straight through. Or just go and have a cup of tea. But this one here, with Greening Australia, they did some ponding banks to catch some of the flow that was kind of in the site. As you can see, these trees here are just there.
Oh, yeah.
And then they put water barrels down that had drippers off them. The fire brigade filled them, I think, for a couple of years at decreasing intervals. So they got the trees started. It's contoured so it ponds water now, and this is now.
Is that now?
That's now. So that took 15 years maybe, but it's just buzzing along there. And so there's, you know, this area here, areas that don't have significant trees at present, that all, with traditional owners' direction, have the potential for the same treatment. And what, you know, was in this state prior, and you'll see other photos in there, you know, can start becoming what it should be, you know.
The kidney can rebuild itself. It just needs the help.
Dialysis.
Yeah.
Central
That's what we are, dialysis.
A renal unit.
Of course.
We've got to change that mindset that public areas are there to be trashed, you know. No rules, no responsibility, to creating a responsibility.
So we want to emotionally connect people back to the cultural landscape, particularly the non-Aboriginal community in this town, really connect them emotionally to the cultural landscape. One way we're working on that is developing up a bit of a calendar of the sacred sites of Alice Springs that'll be out for next year, so the Mbarantwa calendar. And through that, hopefully people can learn about where these sites are and start to care. Many of them are, you know, one of them is at the back of a shop in the middle of town surrounded by concrete with a little fence around it, you know. They've been treated dreadfully, but if we can get people caring about them, then, you know, hopefully we can move a section of our community from thinking that sacred sites is just about stopping me doing what I want to do, into, wow, this is part of my responsibility as a resident of this bit of country that I'm a visitor in. I think this is a really important space for reconciliation. You know, if we can get lots of people into the space, working together, listening to Doris, talking with Doris, you know, it's a great way to open up the dialogue and break down the barriers that people in some way have built up that are real or perceived. Yeah.
The thing I can't help but feel is it's this wonderful kind of balance between breaking down and building up. You're breaking down fears and perceptions and years of a particular view, and then you're building up through the sharing and, your trust. Like, trust is a big part of this.
It is.
I'm amazed at the trust that you're sharing.
Yeah. Well, I'd also like to share with you too and give this to you as a gift from having you and your visit there, because I've signed it in there. So
Thank
that
you.
is for you, and to thank you for listening to us. And
look.
the kidneys here and the caterpillar.
Yeah, the kidneys and the caterpillars.